Hello and welcome to the Expert Talk with NFSporTech. Today we have a special guest with us, Miss Vandana Vijay. She is a TEDx speaker, ex-Facebook employee, All India UPSC rank 1. She's founder of Offbeat Track, a travel company, experiential travel company. Vandana, welcome to the show.
Hi Shikhar, thank you so much for having me, and super excited. I think this was long due.
Yeah, absolutely. so good to have you on the show finally. Vandana, we know that you come from an army background. We did a small chat before we got into this, and you told that your grandfather was in the army also. Tell us, how was it growing up when you were younger, the cities you moved, and give us some insights about how.
So, yeah, dad and grandfather both were in the army, and from what I can remember, conversations at home were very defense oriented. So I remember overhearing my dad and grandfather talk, and both were coincidentally from the EME, and the conversation would be very military about who's posted there and who is the DG there and this and that. But that being said, I think I was very privileged to have been brought up, in being a defense officer's daughter. I think the exposure I got moving around from place to place, and I love that lifestyle. I think every 2 years, or 3 years, we would be itching to go to a new place, knowing that it's time to explore a new place.
Tell me about it. It's actually a problem now.
I know. And we had a very interesting mix of places that I grew up at. For some reason, my dad never got posted to the Northeast. And I remember every posting, he would say, Abhi Northeast aayega, Abhi East aayega. But he never got posted from East from New Delhi. So that's how he...
Okay.
And grew up in very interesting small places like Mau. Mau was a beautiful place where we grew up. Then Wellington.
This is Maharashtra, right?
Mau is MP, next to Indore.
Okay.
And then Wellington, which is near Ooty in Tamil Nadu in the Nilgiris. 2 years of schooling in Srinagar also. So I had a lovely range of places I grew up in. And I think my liking for the mountains and the fondness for the mountains kind of came from having, experiences in such places. I've loved the outdoors always. And I think, growing up in cantonments, you've got the luxury of access to so many facilities, right? You could go swimming, you could learn horse riding. In Srinagar, I remember our house used to be on this peak called as Bhalu Peak. So we would just set up on treks every Sunday and trek to the top of the peak and all of that. So I feel very blessed and fortunate to have had this kind of exposure growing up.
Right. And which was the longest stint that you've had with any city, living in a city? So
Delhi. I did my class 8th, 9th and 10th in Delhi. It was a culture shock for me because I was someone who'd come from small places like Mau, Wellington and Srinagar. So,
but you originally come from Hyderabad, right?
Originally we're from Hyderabad. So every year, summer vacation or any winter vacation, come what may, we would be making at least 2 trips to Hyderabad every year. And my mother is from Chennai, so we'd have a few trips to Chennai also.
Okay. And this is a question that a lot of civilian friends get really surprised with. How many schools did you change in your 12 years of schooling?
I think 8 to 10. I'll have to count back, but yeah, definitely more than 8.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, how you get used to such a life, and now you tend to crave it. Like when you're in a place for maybe longer than 2.5, 3 years.
And in fact, I find it very.
Body cycle.
I know, and I find it very hard to relate with people going like, oh, I got to switch places, and it's so hard to adjust. And like, it used to be so exciting for us growing up, where you look forward to going to a new place and making new friends, and no matter what screw-ups you did here, you'd say, it's okay, the chapter's closed, I can start and finish at the new place.
Absolutely. But tell me, did you, how is it, there's obviously, you live in a place, you make friends, and then you move elsewhere, you make new friends there. But how have you stayed in touch with friends from other stations, and how have your social skills developed in that sense?
So, truth be told, I think the set of friends whom I'm really in touch with are my friends which I made in Delhi. That was in class 8. So I think that was the formative time. So 8, 9, 10th, I made some of my closest friends from then. And there was a very deliberate effort actually we friends took to be in touch. So one of my friends, she continued to stay on in Delhi and she would be like this nodal point. So, whenever I would be traveling around, Delhi would come in between. I would make it a point to kind of meet her and be in touch. But yes, definitely friends from before that, not very close. So that strong bond hasn't really formed. And of course, now, today's day and age, thanks to social media, who's where and what they are, but you're not particularly close with them. That way, I really envy kids who've been in one city throughout, who've got, they say we've been friends through kindergarten and school and college. That's an experience which, being defense children, we don't really get to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And they say that, the people who you went to school with, maybe in your formative years, those are the ones, if they stick, they, stay on for life.
I agree.
Yeah. I know a couple of your friends very well, like Sanya, who's a golfer.
That's right.
That's one friend that you've really...
So Sanya and me have a very interesting story on how we met. I don't know how appropriate this would be, since I think my parents would also be watching this video. But, so
let's take that risk.
So Sanya and me actually met because both our ex-boyfriends were very good friends.
Okay.
And of course, the ex-boyfriends became ex-boyfriends, but both of us continued to be very, very good friends. And she is definitely one of my closest friends. But a very interesting story about Sanya is also that Sanya's mother and my father are classmates from school.
Oh.
And which we did not figure. I remember one day I was generally talking to her mom, and she was like, I'm from this school, FS Golden Jubilee, Delhi. I said, my father is. She says, mere class mein ek ladka hota tha, YBR Vijay, lamba sa, patla sa. And I'm like, that's my dad.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's very interesting on how actually, our parents also know each other.
But Sanya also came from an army background?
Yes. So Sanya's father also was in the army, in the Madras regiment. And her mother is an Air Force officer's daughter. So she's also has a lot of defense in her family.
Wow. Okay, Vandana, I wanted to ask you, while you were growing up, what kind of aspirations did you have? You mentioned that a lot of defense-oriented talks you would witness at home. Mm-hmm. What was it? I mean, when you were growing up, what did you think you would aspire to become, or what did you dream of becoming?
So I think I was very fortunate to have grown up in a family where we had very strong women. So we had a lot of women who were strong leaders and excelling in multiple fields. Immediate family, my father's sister is a very accomplished doctor, and she's a very smart, powerful personality. And I have my father's cousins and my mother's side, some of them are accomplished writers, social activists and all of that. So and as a personality, I also view myself as someone who's very, very independent. So I constantly remember, even as a child, always visualizing myself as being this independent person, having like a very strong sense of individual personality or identity. But growing up, role models at home. So I know for a long time I wanted to be a doctor because the immediate family had a lot of doctors as role models at home. So
this is your father's side or the mother's side?
My father's side. My mother's the only child. So my father has a brother and sister, both being doctors. So I think those were strong role models.
And one of them or both of them live overseas?
Yes, both of them are doctors in the States. So that was there. And I always looked up to my aunt as this very strong personality and someone who, walks into the room and everybody is taking notice. So that was always the case. And I said, I wanted to be that kind of personality. But I think the interest to be a doctor kind of waned out by the time I got into 11th class. And though I had maths and biology as my subjects, and I still absolutely love biology and all, but I kind of figured that I don't think I would be, I did not want to possibly dedicate 10 years or more of my life to studying in the medical profession.
Although, funnily, you did spend a lot of time preparing for the...
I know, who would have ever thought. I did spend, exactly. So that was always the case. The fascination with the defense actually, and wanted to join the defense more, and started coming in from 12th and then graduation.
Okay.
Because
you were all through athletic, and you liked the outdoors.
Yes,
Was that
and
also?
I liked the outdoors. I loved interacting with people, and I loved the whole idea of moving around. And you know, we're a service officers kids. When somebody walks in with a uniform, everyone's gonna stand and take notice. And I wanted to kind of have that authority. And I still remember, I think it was in 8th or 9th class, we had gone to see the Republic Day live in Delhi.
Okay.
People walking down the Rajpath, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I would love to walk down the Rajpath, lead a contingent or be in the contingent. So I always loved the forces, but never really thought of that as a career option until about maybe 12th to first year of college, where I started seeing people around. Then interestingly, we when my dad was a CO, so we had a few lady officers in the units. And
EME does have.
Yeah. So it was nice interaction, and then seeing them, learning about their experiences and so on and so forth. So I guess it kind of just went in there. So that's why I say my life has actually been quite a roller coaster journey, and I've been all over the place. But yeah, I guess that's just how it
all
is.
All over the place, but excelling at most of them.
Hopefully. Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Okay, so we did speak about you joining the forces, and of course, you were number one in merit in UPSC ranks. Why did you not join the forces then?
So, yeah, very good question. So, the whole process of preparing was almost 2 years. In fact, I filled out the form when I got into my MSc. I was doing my MSc in microbiology. And
this was while you were in Bangalore?
I was in Hyderabad. I did my BSc and MSc both in Hyderabad. So I think I filled out the form for CDS in 2007. That's when I got in. I was in my first or second year of MSc. So there's a written exam, after which the written results are out. Then you qualify for your SSB, and then you've got your medical, and then finally the merit list. So the plan was that by the time I finished with my MSc, which was 2 years, I would be able to join academy. And thankfully, everything worked out. There was a little glitch in between. I remember I was given temporary rejection by medicals. I had my SSB in Allahabad and from medicals, and I apparently
rejection center apparently.
It is. It was December 2008. I still think one of the best experiences of my life. I tell everybody, you must go for it. So I have this weird biological condition where I have apparently 2 extra ribs here. It's called bilateral cervical ribs. So I was given temporary rejection.
That's the first I've heard ever.
And finally appealed for it and got through. And then the merit list came out. I think the merit list came out sometime in February. And I was applying in the Short Service Commission non-technical category. So that's, I think, about 20 vacancies only.
Okay.
So 20 vacancies every 6 months that come out, and there's a huge bunch of candidates. There are lakhs of candidates actually applying for it. And I remember from my batch of 60 in my SSB, we were just 4 who got recommended, out of which the other 3 got merit out. So it was great. And you're always looking at getting into merit. You never think of topping the merit list. You're like, as long as you just make the cut.
Sure. Yeah.
And that happened. And I think it was at that point of time that my father was like, okay, they were super happy, super excited. But a couple of things which were of concern to him back then were that, just a year before I had joined, the bond for short service had been increased from 5 years to 10 years.
Yeah, I remember that point.
Before that, you could serve for 5 and then leave. But when we were joining, you had to, do a mandatory of 10 years. And then, of course, you had to do your 14 was maximum, then you were out. There was no permanent commission for women.
Correct.
It's just come, right? Yeah. So my father's whole argument was that, you're going to be giving the 10 best years of your life to an organization. And in a lot of cases, you are going to be denied promotions or certain things on the primary basis of your gender. So why get into an organization where the glass ceiling is already defined for you? And 10 years is not a short time. So he said, had it been 5, it's great. It's brilliant exposure. You do the 5 year come out, but 10, you're giving in like, the prime of your 20s, you're probably in your early 30s, and then you're coming out and, what next? So that was his main cause for concern. And it was almost 40 days of constant talking at home and conversations at home, with which I kind of finally decided that probably this is not the best choice for me, and then I decided to move on.
Okay.
Though if I look back in hindsight now, it would have been a very different decision because my batchmates have just about retired, or they would be retiring because they were finished their 10s. So people are still very confused as to what to do. So it would have been a very different decision.
Right. And then you moved to preparing for the civil service.
That's right. So then again decided to apply for the civil services, and I took 4 attempts for that. 3 attempts. Studied for 4 years. Unfortunately, I wasn't lucky in that, and I guess primarily my strategy wasn't right. If I look back in hindsight, I think I should have stayed on in Delhi and taken professional coaching or something. But back then, it was just a different situation.
And this is the time when you were in Bangalore. Also.
That's right. I was staying with my parents in Bangalore back then.
And I distinctly remember because I was in Bangalore also. And
you were preparing for your CA back then.
Correct. And we were, because your brother and I, obviously, we were tennis buddies, and
that's right.
Also we did a venture together.
Yes.
So we did converse very often. I distinctly remember that there was a point while you were preparing for the civil services, you were also taking classes for others.
That's right.
And you were genuinely good at what you, I don't have to say this, you are genuinely good at what you do. Your achievements say it, but I do remember distinctly that you were while you were preparing, you were also teaching others.
Yes.
To prepare for them. So how was that experience?
I think that was brilliant. I absolutely loved it, and so I love interacting with people, and I was doing subjects which I was very, very fond of. So I was taking geography, I was doing foreign policy, and I was doing a little bit of biology and ecology of environment. And I guess, the advantage of teaching is you need to be doubly sure, because you're going to be presenting what you know to an audience. So you are not going to leave any stone unturned. So you are absolutely sure that these subjects are going to be covered to you head to toe, because you are disseminating that information, and you do not want to be caught at the source spot. So I absolutely loved doing that. So I was going to classes and teaching. And then when I moved back to Delhi, I moved to teaching online. And I think
also from Bangalore you moved to Delhi also.
So I was in Bangalore from 2009 to 2012. 2012 we moved back to Delhi for a while, and
this is while your dad was serving, or
yes, Delhi was my dad's last posting. So my dad was in Delhi for about 10 months, and then he put up his papers.
I see.
So this was 2012, and online coaching, it was, I think, way ahead of its times.
Sure. Yeah. And now that you think of it, everything is online now.
Correct.
About 8 years ago, it wasn't, obviously. We did not even have good internet.
Exactly. I remember it used to be really hard to get a decent connection. Things are very different now.
Okay, so defense background, then you decided not to get to the armed forces. Then you tried to get prepared for IAS. So very government and secure job-oriented outlook.
Very much.
And cut to 2018, 2020, you are an entrepreneur running your own show. And how has that journey been?
I still miss the salary and I still miss the security and the steady paycheck. But
no,
so
but you did.
Sorry, sir. No, go ahead.
Before we get to offbeat track, you did take up a job with Facebook.
Yes.
And I remember that point when we got the news that Vandana has gotten into Facebook, and Facebook was like heaven. I think still is in a lot of ways. But Facebook had just maybe set up base in India, and Facebook was the unicorn, obviously, back then. So how did Facebook happen? Why did you were you looking for Facebook, or how was it?
So cut back 2012, I had taken my third attempt for the civil services, did not clear it, and I was like, that's it, I'm done. I need to do something else. I went to the US for 3 months.
Okay.
And I traveled across the US. My parents, I've got a lot of family in the US, so my parents
Right.
were like, if you consider a master's program, do you think you want to go there? Look at getting back into life
But this
sciences
is
and
when
all.
you had already done MSc, right?
Finished my MSc, yes. I finished my MSc back in 2009.
Right.
So, maybe do a little credits and then get into a doctorate program or so on. But going for the 3 months tour to the US had one thing for me decided for sure, is that this is not what I want to do. And I'd like to come back to India and work in India.
Okay.
I came back to Hyderabad. Hyderabad was home turf. I knew people there since I done college, and I had a good friend circle and all. And I was looking at applying, and I figured my strengths are I've got very strong communication skills, and I like jobs which have me interact with people and so on. And this role with Facebook came in. Facebook was still relatively new in India, as you said. In fact, our generation, so you realize that I still remember speaking to people from the older generation, and I said I work with Facebook, and they started laughing because they did not realize that Facebook is actually a company. Someone actually started laughing and saying, "So what do you do? Sit at home and just go and like things?"
Make comments. That is also a job. There are people who do that.
They're the bots. Thankfully, I did not have that. But I think it was just great. I feel so fortunate to have worked in one of probably the best companies in the world. And so I got into Facebook, and I was working with Facebook ads. Back in 2013, ads were still very new in the market, and it is the only source of.
Was this a sales oriented job, or?
No, it was core operations, back end operations.
Okay.
So what that means is, ads on Facebook are the only source via which the company makes money. Now, you have a whole bunch of advertisers from across the world advertising on Facebook,
right.
But Facebook's got very strict advertising policies. So you cannot advertise for, say, weapons. You cannot sell pornography. If you are selling alcohol, it has to be targeted to an audience over a certain age group. If you're selling, say, medication, it has to be. So there is a back-end system in Facebook where all these ads are uploaded and they're sent for approval. So we were on the team which was either looking at manually approving the ads or creating machine learning rules via which ads get approved or disapproved. So we were essentially ensuring that the good ads get approved and the bad ads get disapproved.
And also making it automated to whatever extent.
A lot of automation, checking if the rules are firing properly. Then for about 8 to 10 months, I also worked with small and medium businesses across the world, talking to them on the benefits of Facebook advertising, how this is a great marketing platform by which they can reach out to a larger audience. And then my last year in Facebook, the workflow had matured to the extent that we'd outsourced it to Accenture. So then I was just handling that with Accenture.
I see. Okay, so Facebook stint was how long?
3 years.
All in all? Well, that was a reasonable amount of time. And that's when the body clock maybe started talking back.
I'll tell you, the turning point for me was 2014 May. I volunteered for a non-profit in Ladakh. And I just went into a bunch of non-profits. I had taken 2.5 weeks off from work. And I said, I need to go to the mountains. I just need to get away and do something. And I had visited Ladakh in 2011 and I'd always wanted to go back.
Okay.
So I wrote into this non-profit and I volunteered to them saying that, I will talk to you all about, and in fact, it was great because I got to interact with a bunch of non-profits in Ladakh, talking to them about the benefits of social media as a platform, NGOs on how they could leverage Facebook and Instagram as platforms to talk about their work and the impact they're creating to a global audience. And in turn, I wanted to just see what is the kind of work they're doing there. And I think those 2.5 weeks I spent there, we trekked to remote villages, interacted with remote communities, looked at indigenous methods which they had employed for solutions such as, making artificial greenhouses there to grow crop through the year, solar walls for heating of the homes, artificial glaciers are made for water resource management and so on. And I think that is when the clock started ticking and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to work. And I really wanted to work with rural communities because I just feel like the true essence of India is there and I wanted to create impact at that level. So that was when the seed was sown and I finally took the plunge in 2016.
I see. So offbeat tracks, sustainable development, experiential travel, a lot of buzzwords out there. Clear, uh, make it slightly clearer for our viewers.
Sure,
What does it
sure.
mean?
Very simple. So we are a travel company that focuses on rich experiences. I personally believe that travel is a great teacher. And every time you travel, get out of your comfort zone, go to a new place, you come back richer with a new experience and a new learning. Now, travel should not only be something where you're stimulating your sense of sight, taking a bunch of pictures and putting it up on Instagram. There is so much more to travel. And it's very important to stimulate every sense of yours when you travel. And I I feel that we are very fortunate to have been born in a country such as India, which is blessed with so much of diversity. You travel a couple of 100 kilometers from where you are, and you are exposed to a new culture, a new dialect, a new environment. And just in terms of, if you just look at geography, you've got the mighty Himalayas up north, you've got the deserts, you've got the dense jungles, and you've got the beautiful coastline. Cuisine, Indian cuisine is world famous, but Indian cuisine has been simplified to just butter chicken and paneer butter masala, or we think South Indian cuisine is just idlis and dosas,
Right.
and maybe a little bit of a biryani. But we have so much of diversity when it comes to food. You're from Kashmir. In fact, Kashmiri Pandit food is different from Kashmiri Muslim food.
Absolutely.
Right? Ladakh and so on. So what I believe is when someone travels, you need to experience a place. And what better way to experience a place than interact with the locals? So when you travel with offbeat tracks, we keep the experience very immersive. So when you stay, don't stay at a regular chain hotel or an OYO, because once you get into your hotel room, that's it. The insides of a hotel look the same everywhere.
Yeah.
So I encourage my guests to stay in a homestay run by a local family or a boutique property. So just imagine, you're in a homestay, you meet the local family for a meal, and you sit and talk about their culture, their life. For example, one of the homestays in Bhutan, since we were discussing Bhutan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be interested to hear that.
So two families we work with. One of them, her father was one of the first judges of the country.
Wow.
The
Okay.
other family, the husband was a bureaucrat. The lady had done her nurse training in UK, and she came back to India. And the family was the first family to open a poultry business in Bhutan. Till then, Bhutan was completely reliant on India for eggs and meat, chicken meat.
Achha.
So, this is the conversation you have with them. So they call you for dinner and she'll talk to you about how the country transitioned from a monarchy to a democracy, what they liked about the monarchy, what they probably don't like about the country being a democracy. So there's so much to learn. You won't have these conversations had you been in a hotel.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? So,
but there is a slight similarity to Airbnb, although Airbnb is a much more scaled model.
Exactly, absolutely. So how I put it is, I look at travel, I componentize travel. So if you look at travel, one component is your mode of transport, right? How you get to that place. You can either fly to the place or drive down to the place. Then the other component is your stay. Then a very major component is the food. And then last but not the least is the range of experiences that you have during your stay. Now, each one of these components of travel, we try and make them immersive and sustainable. So, for example, now when you're sightseeing around a place, instead of just renting a taxi and driving around, we give you a guide and say, let's do a walking tour. Or if people like cycling, we'll say, let's do a bicycling tour around the city or the town. Right? Then stays I've already covered. It's homestays or boutique properties. Food. You can do the regular food, but I say let's do something where you have a home cooked meal with a local family. Or if you're somewhere in the wilderness, we give you a farm to table experience where you go with the farmer, spend a day with the farmer, picking crop, understanding, visit the farmer's market, and come back home and learn how to make the signature dish. For example, in Nagaland, the king chili, which is supposed to be the fieriest chili in the world, it's also called as bhut chola kya. So you get that, and she'll teach you how to make a chutney out of that at home. And then, of course, the range of experiences. I do cover the sightseeing bit of it. I mean, you visit the important places, but we add a little bit of an experience to it. For example, in Bhutan, The Tiger's Nest Monastery is the most famous monastery. It's the most photographed monastery. We say instead of just visiting the monastery, let's have a meditation session also in that monastery under the monk, right? Souvenirs. Don't go to that store and just pick up those mass souvenirs. Make that souvenir making an experience. So you could work with an artisan, make a beer mug out of bamboo with an artisan in the East, or learn how to weave a shawl or something like
But
that.
that must, hearing you give out such details, there must be a lot of research and coordination from your end that needs to be done before you curate even one such
So
experience.
to begin with, I have personally been to all these destinations and vetted it. So when I started in 2012, I only launched with Ladakh, Sikkim and Bhutan because I'd been there and I knew the places and I had had my contacts. Then eventually we started scaling, we started exploring new destinations. Now we've had vendors proactively reach out to us and say that this is what we have, this is what we have to offer.
Okay.
But that still being said, there is a lot of coordination which is being done on the back end by us when someone's taking a trip to ensure that every experience kind of just seamlessly fits into the other. To end of the day, the guests should have a good vacation and a great experience.
Of course, that's the objective at the end of the day. Interesting. My next question would be, how do you look at experiential travel, sustainable development goals, mingled with experiential travel, being affected by the current scenario post-COVID? And of course, I mean, the industry is where it is. How do you see that changing or reacting to the current situation?
Sure. So I'll take that up in two parts. We'll first talk about the SDGs. So the SDGs, as a company, we've identified 3 SDGs as mandated by the UN: SDG 7, 8, and 12. And when you travel with offbeat tracks, one of these SDGs are, being accomplished. So, for example, SDG 7 is clean energy. Now, these are, I lead these signature expeditions in Ladakh, wherein you go and we've identified remote villages and homes which have not been electrified. Now, Ladakh, owing to its geographical location, is a high altitude cold desert. So you're looking at about 300 days of abundant sunshine. So we figured that the best way to bring light to these homes and clean energy is let's solar electrify these homes. So
I think this was the event that was very well covered by the media also.
Correct, and I've given one TED talk also on this.
Oh, on this, okay.
Yeah, so where it's a great experience where we're going to homes and giving them the gift of light, essentially, and we're giving them clean energy, and it's solar, and so it's simple. You can easily mount these in different places, and so these expeditions are something we're looking at scaling up, wherein we'd have people come in groups and we just bring light. The other ones are gainful employment, decent work, and economic growth. So think of it this way, that when you're staying at a homestay, you are actually generating a network of micro entrepreneurs in rural areas or smaller towns, right? You are giving that host an additional source of income. Absolutely. Or the experiences. So this is a problem which rural India is facing, is there is lack of employment in the region, especially if you go into the mountains. Uttarakhand has this concept of ghost villages. Because of lack of employment, all the youth kind of migrate to the cities and the villages are left with old people just staying there. Right. So we've kind of aiming to decentralize the whole job seeking thing and say that we could probably use hospitality and tourism as a way to create jobs back in the villages to ensure that people continue to stay on there. So all these experiences which we've been talking about are kind of helping and solve for that. You are giving all these rural service providers an additional source of income. Now to the next part of your question, how COVID has impacted the industry. Tourism and hospitality has been one of the worst impacted industries during this pandemic. Personally, I can say that we started seeing effects of COVID on business right from the first week of February, where inquiries were dwindling, people were scared about traveling, and initially, optimistically, we were looking at things recovering in August, but we're already in August and things don't look to be okay. So
until the vaccine comes out and not is distributed to everyone,
Absolutely.
went
So
back
maybe
immediately.
some form of tourism will recover in October, November, but it's so domestic tourism is going to lead the way.
Okay.
People are not going to look at traveling internationally because one, it's very cumbersome. It's going to be hard
Yeah.
to travel
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
The duration of vacations are going to increase.
Okay.
People are not going to look at just going for 2 days or 3 days because there are going to be rules by which people are going to mandate that you're visiting a particular destination, stay there at least for a week. Um, there's this whole new concept of workations which are trending. So if you noticed, remote work is probably going to become the norm. Big
Right.
companies like Uber, Facebook, Google have already announced work from home till July 2021. So you are going to have a lot of people working remotely. So it doesn't really matter where you're based out of as long as you've got a good internet connection. So what
Right.
we as a company are also pitching is we've identified these beautiful homestays in the mountains with good working internet and say, why don't
With
you
good
just go and
internet.
stay there for a month? So
Why don't you tell me some of those also? I'd
oh
love to
yes, I'd be
go.
more than glad to. In fact, Arvind's also planning to go on a
Also,
vacation sometime in September. So
I see. Okay.
it's called as workation. So you're at a vacation place, but you can work from it also. So that's
Right.
probably going to come up in the interim. And
Okay. Interesting.
a lot of I think people are going to start in the near future. People are going to look at going to places with a lot of open spaces. So jungle safaris, wildlife tours, these kind of things are probably going to lead the way until, of course, a vaccine comes out and so on, and then things plateau. But things which are definitely here to stay, what we foresee is higher standards of hygiene.
Yeah.
Right? Higher
In
standards.
fact, it was just this morning I was thinking to myself that uh, I mean I am very allergic. Like I catch cold very quickly. There's a little bit of dust and I'll start sneezing or coughing and stuff. And I realized that during this lockdown of the last 5 or 6 months, uh, I don't know if I was overcautious or it was just the norm, around, or was it just coincidence? But I haven't got cold at all,
That's
in this
great.
duration. So it must be
But
because you're just more,
yes,
conscious about
that's one,
what
and
you're
also
touching, what you're
pollution
doing.
levels have drastically
Yeah,
fallen,
yeah, that
in
also,
this
of course.
during this
Yeah,
lockdown period. And I just feel like nature has been given a chance to recover
yeah,
from this tremendous onslaught that it's been constantly facing. So, so there are definitely certain goods which have come out of the pandemic.
yeah.
Uh,
But the economy, of course,
Oh
will take a while
yes,
before
it's gonna
it.
take a while. Also, hospitality is, I think it employs more than 38% of the country's population, either directly or indirectly. So it's a huge income generator,
Yeah,
employment generator. So a lot of people have been affected. So
right.
let's just hope when it recovers. There was this one
But
joke.
it's very very good to, yeah. Go on. I want to hear that joke.
So you like see the movie Titanic, where the ship's sinking, but you've got the band which is constantly playing the music. And they say the hospitality industry is the same in this current situation.
कुछ भी चलता रहे,
We are just hoping with
but
optimism, that चलो सब ठीक हो जाएगा.
I see. But very, very interestingly broken down and explained. It's gotten, at least given me a lot of insights into the work that Offbeat Track is doing. A lot of our viewers are sportsmen or sports oriented. So this was a question that, was meant to be asked in this session. You're also very outdoorsy. You work out very regularly. I keep seeing you cycling, and also your workout videos now and then. While you're traveling, how do you manage to stay fit? Or there is always a tendency to eat out of your basic routine, or maybe you tend to miss meals or overeat sometimes during travel. So how do you manage personally? How do you manage to keep yourself fit or physically active while you're traveling?
So when it comes to food, I don't compromise. When I'm traveling, it's my cheat phase. I love food, and I'm very unapologetic about the fact that I love food. And when I'm going to a new place, I love experimenting with the flavors. But that being said, I walk a lot when I'm traveling. So when I'm traveling or exploring a new place, I feel like the best way to do it is on foot. So I'm looking at walking about 12 to 15 kilometers a day when I'm traveling, right? And if, of course, if you're in the mountains, you can't walk so much because you're scaling out it. But I'm talking about regular plains, or then you're looking at cycling around. So that way, I kind of tend to get that exercise component of it as part of my work. Also, fortunately for me, my work involves me going to a lot of remote locations, and a lot of them are in the mountains. So, the trek angle and just being a Miss Nature and all is automatically taken care of. But for sports enthusiasts, I must, since you talked about it, I must pitch it out there. There are a lot of places where you can keep sport as the focal point of your tour and travel. So last year, October, I had visited Mizoram, and they were inaugurating the latest golf course in the Northeast at this place called Well. It was an 18-hole state-of-the-art golf course.
Wow. Okay.
So they're looking at golfers coming in there, and this whole thing of golf tourism happening in the region. For people who love bicycling, bicycling tours are a great way to explore and experience the country at your own pace, and you're having your fitness taken care of course.
Yes, so sport and health and fitness would also get more credence because of this pandemic, I think, because people are realizing that.
In fact, again, another industry which people are looking at focusing on is health and wellness tourism, where people are going to go for detox or Ayurveda, as you said, just like fitness in a holistic sense, where you're looking at every aspect, is definitely going to get a lot of clients.
Interesting. Vandana, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.
Getting to know your background and the way you are making the world a better place.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And I hope the viewers have enjoyed the session also. We're going to bid Vandana goodbye now. Thank you, Vandana. All the best.
Bye. Thank you.